Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for joining us today for this great event on 5G. We're going to start out with each of the panelists just giving a kind of a 5G speed introduction about their company's involvement with 5G. And then we're going to go to really a lot of questions about this race in 5G and where we're going and what the developments are in that race. And we will be opening it up for questions from the audience, so try to keep your thoughts and ideas about what you might want to ask these expert panelists as the day goes on. So let's just move on, and we'll start with, again, brief introductions about your company's, your name and your company's involvement in 5G.
Okay, my name is Kibi, and I'm from China Telecom. I used to work in Bell Labs for 20 years. I joined China Telecom in 2010. China Telecom, as you know, is similar to AT&T in the US, and we have the largest wireline market here in China, about 60%. And we were so big that we were not allowed to do wireless business until 2008, and we were given the license. And so we started actually in 2009 deployment of CDMA, so we have a good relationship with Qualcomm. And that's for 2G and 3G. And we are in the midst of deploying 4G LTE right now since 2 years ago. And for me, I'm in the research institute, and in my role, my main function is to look and do 5G. And we, as a service provider, are very interested in 5G, and it's a race to deploy that in the future.
Eric?
Okay, thank you, Chris. I'm Eric Ikonen with Ericsson. I'm head of technology strategy for the Ericsson Group. And I think if we look a few years into the future, 5 years into the future, we expect some 7.5 billion mobile broadband subscription. That's basically twice what we have today. And we expect some 4 times as many LTE subscriptions compared to today. We're past 1 billion now. It's going to be more than 4 billion subscriptions on LTE by 2021. But at the same time, 2021, we will not see more than perhaps 150 million 5G new radio subscriptions. So it's small numbers 5 years out. On the other hand, we're already starting the 5G journey now with a new 5G radio core network, the things that we do on the IoT side, what we're doing on the evolution of LTE, what we call the 5G plugins. And of course, that will ultimately lead to the new radio. So from an Ericsson perspective, having this platform of really low latency, sustainable bit rates of 100 megabit per second or so everywhere, ubiquitous, and of course having security and identity is a 5G platform that we are starting to work with our customers on already today. And we have some 24 operator engagements around the world, here in the US obviously, with all the major carriers, also in Asia with very many of them, starting up lab activities, trials activities, and certainly in Europe. And that is a foundation when we now reach out to all these other industries, engagements with transportation, engagements with utility sector, engagements with cities, and of course all the consumer stage. So I think we are full-fledged into the 5G journey, but of course it's early days when it comes to the new radio access, the NR that we'll be talking more about. So.
Great. All right, Aisha?
Good morning, everyone. It's still morning, yeah? I'm Aisha Evans. I serve wireless at Intel. And for us as a company, we sort of look at our industry. We've done an excellent job at voice and data communication, but mostly person to person at the end of the day. And when we look at the next era, we think that there will be more and more digitization with billions of devices that today are not connected. Eric was mentioning different sectors that are not necessarily connected today, but that will be in the future. And as we prepare for that, 5G basically is really an ecosystem shift, everybody working together so that when we put these machines on the network, in addition to person-to-person communication continuing to grow, the network is ready, it's smart, it's intelligent. We use the spectrum efficiently. And that's really what Intel is about. We also look at it as an end-to-end play, meaning it's not just about devices, it's access, it's the core network, all the way to the cloud, as more and more things are happening on the cloud. And really what will tie the machines and the intelligence together is the cloud. And we're working pretty much closely with everybody on this stage to make that happen. Because it's going to require collaboration. We will compete, but we will also have to collaborate, or there will be such fragmentation that we won't be able to sustain everything on the network.
Great, thanks. Matt?
Thanks. I'm Matt Grob. I've been at Qualcomm over 20 years, and my role is to run the R&D at Qualcomm. We're really excited about 5G. Whenever there's a technology transition, in particular in the cellular family, it's what we do. It's rooted in the culture of the company, for 30 years. And it's a chance to apply all the lessons we've learned in the previous ones and kind of start with a little bit of a clean sheet of paper. We're definitely looking with great excitement at the large participation in the 5G definition. Machine to machine, high speed, vehicles, medical devices, all those things, it's very, very much within our reach. It's not the case at all that we're maxing out or running out of capacity. We can continue to push that boundary. There's a lot of techniques left still to do. There's ways to use the spectrum more efficiently. There's ways to use more types of spectrum. And so we're going to be right in the middle of that. We're the supplier of the chips in most of your phones, the modems, the processors, the RF components. And so that's what we do, and this is a great moment for the industry.
Great, thank you. Li-Xin?
Okay, my name is Li-Xin Chen. I'm SVP of ZTE Corporation and also head of North America. So ZTE was founded back in 1985 with a mission to provide affordable communication to worldwide. So now we are a global company, 160 countries. So ZTE success is coming from a unique business model we call the ACW, America, China, Worldwide. So actually ZTE was one of the first companies in the world to sign a license agreement with Qualcomm back in 1899, that for taking the CDMA technology to China, at the time China Telecom, and also worldwide. So we investing heavily in innovation, both in US and also China. It's the most important market in the world, and then we sell those products and solutions worldwide. So now it's very exciting time for the mobile industry as we are maturing the 4G LTE and also getting to the 5G. As you noticed, there are many countries like Japan, Korea, US, China, and has announced very specific timeline now for rolling out the 5G around 2020. So ZTE has started investing in 5G back in 2009. Since then, ZTE has invested more than $210 million in this area. And we're planning to invest another $350 million during the next 3 years by 2018. So we have signed different cooperation agreements with around different carriers in Europe, in Asia, and about 8 different trials we're going to take out. So 2015, ZTE was recognized by Forrest Sullivan as a leading 5G technology provider. And early this year at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, ZTE won 2 outstanding awards. One is a CTO's choice. Another one is a mobile technology breakthrough. We recognize our pioneer in the 5G technology. So as a handset, also 4th largest smartphone vendor in the United States, we're very keen to working with also US carriers to bring 5G experience to the consumers here as early as possible. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's get to kind of the nuts and bolts of the title of this whole panel that we have. And so let's just start out. I mean, do expert panelists here think that there is a race in this in 5G? I mean, is there a race by countries or regions to be early in deployments and to get out there with the new use cases and application services? And so, I would like to hear certain of your opinions about, is there a race going on and why? So, Matt, that'd be great.
I think in many cases there is a race. Regionally, the reasons may differ. You might have, you may have a case where a regulator has made spectrum available as long as there's occupancy requirements and you need to get going. There might be a case where there's a major national event like an Olympics, or there might be simply a strategic imperative because there's a business opportunity and you want to go for that. So I think if you look at the different regions around the world, you have all of those instances, and in each one there's an imperative to get there quickly. We want to be mindful to not go too quickly because we want 5G to be a big step forward. We're already iterating 4G, so we don't want to have another different version of 4G iteration. We want it to be a big step forward. So there's a little bit of tension between those two philosophies. But generally, yeah, there's a desire to go fast.
And to fully agree, And to add to your point, we also don't want to be fragmented.
Yes.
Because
That's
that would
very
be
important.
a disaster.
Yeah, I
Anybody
agree.
else?
Yeah.
I agree with that. There is a race also, going on. As we see here, recently Verizon announced early rollout even in 2017, next year. And KT or Korea Telecom, they want to get 5G ready for the Winter Olympics in 2018. And Japan already announced, they want to get ready by 2020 Olympics. And China also, announced that, deploy 5G commercially in 2020, including China Telecom. So I think those are the things that are going on. But I also agree with Matt. That's Asia. That's challenging because the standardization effort tends to stay behind. According to current schedule, probably we will have 3GPP standardization by end of 2019. So that just leave very little time for us to get unified standards. But I think that's a challenge. That's why we are investing ahead of time, and we are also willing to be a cooperative partner, in this industry to forge everybody together. Then we can have a standardization, as early as possible.
Yeah, so I'd just like to add that, of course, I agree with Matt that there is a race, and this is not the first time we see a race. I mean, it has happened before. And I think races in general are good because that requires everyone to step up and sort of make their piece work together with others. So unlike some of these Olympics that we keep talking about, I think in this race there isn't only one winner. Mm-hmm. There is actually a whole range of winners, and certainly across the world, because we are looking for a global solution which scales and brings the cost benefit to everyone. And also that, again, this time it's actually about involving others, industries outside of our classical industry, and they will all be winners. So, of course, this is much more than just a race.
Yeah. Well, let me ask the audience, raise your hand if you think that there's a race in 5G when it comes to country or specific regions. Raise your hand. All those that don't think there's a race, raise your hand. All right, shows you how smart our panelists are today, huh? One thing I want to ask, though, is, when you look at 5G and where we are, I mean, there's a lot of energy going into 5G. There's a lot of focus, a lot of media attention, a lot of buzz. How important is it, the development of LTE and LTE Advanced and LTE Advanced Pro to providing the kind of a foundation for or preparing for 5G? I mean, is this an important aspect to, I guess, the race, or an important aspect to the deployments of 5G, or is it going to matter at all? So I'd like to open it up. Go ahead, Aisha, you were first.
No, I think it's critical. I think we did a good job so far as an industry defining 5G in a responsible way, where we're really taking advantage of the current technology and making it better, so LTE Advanced, and I expect that to continue. There's obviously some Wi-Fi elements and licensed and unlicensed element going in. And then we're adding, where there's new spectrum or new frequencies, we're adding technologies, whether it's NB-IoT, whether it's sub-6, whether it's millimeter wave. So to me, LTE is absolutely critical. You can't be a winner in 5G if you're not strong at also advancing LTE. And I would expect my buddy here from Qualcomm to agree to that, right? Good.
Very much.
I don't know if I've heard Intel and Qualcomm say buddies with each other.
Hey, we're all in the same industry.
So I guess let's go to Eric, and then Matt, I'll let you
Yeah.
have a response.
Well, I think that there is a foundation both in terms of infrastructure investments that can be leveraged. So of course 5G is a foundation for that. The LTE network is a foundation for that also going into 5G. But I also said that earlier that 5G is so much more than the new radio access. 5G is the cloud transformation that we're doing, the horizontalization that we're doing, SDN, NFV, and the distributed cloud. It's also very much about the IoT opportunity, which I think is huge for the industry. And of course, we are already today, or during next year, commercializing what will be possible to put into every sensor, every device, every machine with low cost and global scale. All of those are part of this 5G transformation, and they are just added on top of the infrastructure that we have. So it is a foundation, but it's also something that we will keep evolving in quite big steps, both in the IoT space as well as when we get to the new enhancements on advanced antennas for LTE and going in then to NR. So look at it as a gradual introduction, but with very significant step each and every time. I think Matt mentioned that we want to have that significant step.
So maybe I'll go Matt, and then I'll go Yishi.
So I'll just very quickly completely agree with what you've said. I mean, 4G is still today a major franchise, even 3G for that matter. And you know, it's deployed by many operators, and we're going to continue to enhance it, and that's going to go on for some time. And that's all part of the process that leads to 5G. So I would agree with everything.
So I would add on that I agree with the consensus. Seems the consensus here in the industry, but I would like to add on that actually, as I said, you know, the 5G standardization is kind of cannot be achieved, you know, by end of 2019. But there is a consensus also certain 5G technology already agreed. For example, massive MIMO, MUSA, FB, OFDM. Those kind of technology actually we can deploy already on top of today's LTE network to providing, you know, 1 gigabyte even above kind of user experience today's LTE network. So I think those kind of things we're going to see it happen also very quickly. And ZTE is putting a lot of effort working with different carriers in different regions.
Yeah. So we're talking about 5G, and 3GPP is out there defining it. But you know, those are really technical terms. I mean, if you look at 3GPP standards, I mean, they are deep and wide and so forth. Any of the panelists want to describe what they feel 5G enables? Maybe I'll start with Aisha. Oh, maybe not. You know, what do you feel like 5G will provide the industry, or not the industry, but the consumer or the enterprise or whoever that maybe we're not seeing out there today?
I think more things in our, like if you're an average consumer, right, you don't understand how these things happen, you don't realize that bits are flying by as we're speaking right now. Today, most of your communicating happens through a smartphone or a tablet or a PC or something very definite, right? And it's, as we go forward, many more things in our lives are going to be connected. And the most sexy examples these days, I guess, is you hear a lot about cars, connected cars, and autonomous driving. And what that's going to enable, it's not just about all of a sudden our cars are going to be driven by themselves, but how that's going to revolutionize transportation, how that's going to revolutionize what happens in mega cities, even the concept of owning a car, not owning a car, how that's going to also revolutionize the grid around us and how cities operate and so on and so forth. So to me that the connected car is a very good tangible example, and you're seeing the beginnings. Yes, you don't have level 4 autonomous driving today, but you can see with both disruptors, the likes of Tesla and Google and others, you can see what's starting to happen. But when you also look at incumbents, and you look at a BMW announcement, you look at what Mercedes-Benz is talking about with their E-Class. To me, connected cars are very simple, and it's just one tiny example, because everything around us, in our homes, in the office, while we are learning, while we're working, while we're living our lives, is going to be connected.
Anyone else have a kind of a vision of what they feel 5G will enable?
I think the 5G we heard the most from the media is the speed, is the delay of the It's the massive volume that support. Those, of course, will deliver. However, for service providers' viewpoint, one of the most important thing that the 5G will deliver is actually the cost reduction, the cost per bit. Okay, and as you can see that we have a significant growth in terms of traffic. And those traffic growth is not necessarily from mainly application. Of course, when we have more and more application, and each application will require speed. However, if you really look under the hood, all this growth is actually fueled by the reduction of the cost that is actually delivered from vendor to service provider and service provider to the consumer. So for us, I think the enabler of the cost reduction in terms of cost per bit will actually fuel the growth of many other applications, hopefully many new applications, including the MTC, also known as IoT, and also the further broadband application. And another thing we think 5G will enable is video. And we, in the past, and for many of us, I think we worked in this industry for a long time. For me, it's 20 plus years. And in the past, we say the voice was the king. And apparently now, we all know voice is no longer the king. And when I joined China Telecom, and China Telecom was a major wireline business, and we had the biggest wireline voice in China. And however, it has been declining since I joined the China Telecom. And at that time, everyone was cut the cord of the wireline and switched to wireless voice. And the wireless voice was like a king for a while. But a few years since now, the wireless voice began to decline significantly. We saw the China Telecom's revenue declined significantly from the wireless voice. And if you look, there are a lot of new generations do not even use voice anymore. And since there are so many different applications for communication. So in that case, that we really need to develop new applications, including the IoTs and so on and so forth, to further fuel the growth. Another one is the video. And the video, we believe that video will replace voice, become very important in communications and in entertainment, and will further fuel the growth in terms of the revenue.
So let's talk a little bit more about kind of the challenges and opportunities in 5G as we look at the race to get there. One of the things that we all know is that spectrum is really the oxygen for industry. Obviously a big part of 5G. I first want to talk about the high band spectrum because that's getting a lot of attention, but I also want to talk about the other spectrum out there that is probably not getting as much attention. So let's just start out with the high band spectrum. At WARC 15, it was a bit of a challenge for the mobile wireless industry, and they have identified 11 bands for the agenda for WARC 19. Do the panelists or anyone want to speak up to, do we see countries waiting? I mean, the US just put out 28 gigahertz, 37 gigahertz, and 39 gigahertz rules. Will other countries just move forward because, again, the importance of the race to get to 5G to connect their societies in new ways? Or will they kind of wait? Maybe we'll start with Eric. I know you mentioned it.
Yes, as you said, WRC is a process that we have all been relying on to get harmonized spectrum over the generations, and it has served us very well. So I think that the benefits are clear of having aligned spectrum releases across the world. But unfortunately, as we come up against these challenges of really having wide bandwidth and having them available in time for some of the services that are really being developed as we speak. It's happening much faster than these spectrum regime changes happen. We have to be, I think, a little bit more pragmatic. So although, of course, we support and drive things into WRC 19 and beyond when it comes to this harmonization, but as you rightly say, I think the example that US has set in terms of providing clear guidance, providing the opportunity to acquire licensed spectrum and licensed shared or unlicensed spectrum at an early point is going to be followed by other parts of the world. And then over time, of course, it makes a lot of sense to harmonize these things, make sure that the band plans work not only in one country, in one region, that we can actually leverage the scale also on the front-end side. But I think US has set a good example, and it's a good starting point.
What about Matt? How do you feel? I mean, is high band gets all the attention right now? It seems like everyone wants to talk about millimeter wave and so forth. What about 1 gigahertz and below, or even unlicensed? I mean, 5G Americas has come out and said we need low, mid, and high. We need licensed, shared, and unlicensed. Where do you sit as an expert panelist? On the kind of the 1 gig and below, or any of that?
It's all important. I mean, 5G is more than millimeter wave. Well, that's an important part. By the way, none of these bands are new. I mean, there's been products in all these bands for many years. What is new is techniques now that we're able to make use of this spectrum in new and interesting ways, both from an efficiency standpoint, mobility, and also from a sharing standpoint. There's been a lot of advancement in the ability to share. But all these bands are important. Sub 6 gigahertz, there are scenarios which are very relevant where you will see terminals that not only support both bands, high and low, but also support them concurrently and can exploit the benefits of each at the same time to give a really good experience to the user. So we really need to look at 5G as encompassing both high and low. We want to advance the craft in both those cases.
And Aisha?
Totally agree with both points, and I think we're going to have to be pragmatic and flexible. I often joke inside of Intel that if there are not going to be a lot of 5G devices that encompass everywhere, like within that same device, from below 1 all the way to, let's say, 60. I mean, that would be a monster device, basically. So I think we're going to have to look at use cases. He talked about sub-6. I think in the mobile world, that makes the current mobile world, that makes a lot of sense. If you're putting just something in a parking meter, maybe you don't need the rest of the stuff to come along. We're going to have to be very pragmatic. But what's important is that within the bands that are deployed, when they are deployed, that they are deployed the same way, so that we don't have several versions of the same thing. That's what we have to avoid, in my view.
So I will see the challenges coming from the device side, also.
Yep.
Mention the infrastructure, because, if you say high band, low band, multi-mode, it's not a multi-band, it's a massive band. And also, if you want packing all this band into these small devices, that's a challenge. I think that is why we're looking forward, have a good global standardization as soon as possible, so we can put the right resources, push into the right direction. That is really key. So you cannot build a standalone 5G network overnight. So you're going to build on the 4G LTE, and also to some extent, 3G is still there for a long time, because some low bit connection, you don't need high speed. So how we can, as a world, as an industry, come together to agree as soon as possible, and also plus roaming. Now people is moving around every day. So you'll be Asia today, and then you'll be Europe, and then US. Within 1 week. So those kind of things you have to be able to take a look on that.
Okay. I think the high band certainly, and there are a lot of excitement for high band because of the opportunities of the vast available bandwidth. Okay, and however, high band also comes with challenges, mainly two. One is, of course, the which band in high band will be prevailing. And more band will make the ecosystem more difficult. However, another even more important as far as the service provider is concerned is the cost. And today the high band device has a significant high cost in terms of device. I think the device cost may be overcome by the prevalence of 5G with time, and at least we hope so, and will bring the opportunity of the high speed to consumer. However, there is another difficulty is the path loss caused by 5G that will inevitably make the high band cell as a small cell. And as we all know that vendors have been promoting small cells for quite a while now, and it was expected that the small cell will take off and we'll have multiple small cells in macro cell in a hierarchical way. However, that small cell deployment has only limited success so far because of the cost structure. And in fact, if you look, I don't know the other service provider, but at least in China Telecom, our revenue in terms of the generation after generation is almost flat. And wireless is a very rapid paced industry that if you do not make any updates, and actually your revenue will decline. So from China Telecom, we have aggressively updated from 2G to 3G to 4G, and we barely maintained and slightly up of the revenue. So in other words, the output maintained the same. And because of that, the amount of the capital expense we can put in for the upgrade of the generation is actually limited, almost a similar amount from generation to generation. From this, this dictates the structure of the cellular, and so far macro cell prevailed because it delivers to us the revenue that actually fit into the current business model. For small cell to prevail, and therefore for the high band to prevail, we definitely need innovations in terms of income stream, and also the cost reduction, significant cost reduction of the small cell, so that we will be able to deploy them. So we really hope that the small cell will take off, because that will be underpinning requirement for high band to take off.
So I want to open it up to questions from the audience, and we're going to bring you a live mic out. And when you just raise your hand, if you could let us know your name and what company you're from. And then if you want to direct the question to all the panelists or one specific panelist, please let us know. So we'll start with the first question in the back.
Back here, Mike Roberts, Ovum, what do you see the deployment timelines for the different segments? You know, mobile broadband, IoT, and mission critical. Thanks.
Always nice to start off with a tough question, huh? Anybody care to talk about deployment?
I can take the 5G, as we all know, is about the three things. It's about enhanced wireless broadband. It's about MTC, including massive and delay critical. For the in the past, before the takeoff of the narrowband LTE, people thought that at least as the two MTC, the massive MTC was the one which will lead the 5G deployment. However, the sudden hated success of the narrowband LTE, at least in the technology development, will actually, I think, take a significant part of the market share of the massive MTC away from 5G for a while, because MTC is very cost sensitive, and LTE actually deliver cheaper MTC, at least for the early stage until massive deployment of 5G. So from what we can see, that actually the earliest that will be enhanced mobile broadband for 5G will come first, because it has a very established business case, which is a natural evolution to 4G. And then, of course, comes will be the priority of will be the MTC critical delay due to the expectation of the autonomous vehicle deployment. And we think the massive MTC will come the last and following the success of Narrowband LTE.
Anyone else choose to comment on the different segmentations of use cases and the timeline? I see people thinking.
Well, I think the general comment is that we see this opportunity, and I think narrowband IoT is the carrier of much of that IoT opportunity near term. That's actually happening as we speak, being tested and being rolled out the coming years and years. So that's kind of a given. But then we all know that some of the more 5G high bandwidth use cases, they are either in terms of more residential access, which are perhaps coming a little bit earlier, but they also benefit very much from the characteristics that a full mobile system have. So I think this question needs to be answered a little bit different depending on which market, which region, and which operator. And I certainly won't go into what operator strategies are here, but I think that the toolbox, the platform that we're putting together, it will certainly do the narrowband IoT and the IoT early on, and then it will be more or less a platform that serves both the residential access as well as enhanced low latency mobile broadband and all of those consumer-oriented applications that we know need to drive the ecosystem to get the volumes and to get the scales back. So it's really not so complicated. It's only the fact that we now have a tool that is as sharp as we can serve also residential homes. We can also serve enterprises when they transform into a more automated environment with the IoT connectivity. So it's a broader toolbox. That's why the answer is a little bit broad.
Yeah. I know Li Xing wanted to answer, and then we'll go to a next question, so make sure you raise your hand.
So I think because the question is from Over, I believe you have a report from Over already predicted by 2021, we have about 24 million subscribers on the 5G already on the world. I believe you guys already have breakdown which part come first. And but on the other side, if you look into today's announcement, like KT, for the Olympics, and also Japan for the 2020, I believe probably the first, meaningful value for the consumers is really real-time video broadcasting, because you will see that around the Olympics. I think that's what I see among other things, the panel already mentioned. I just want to add that on.
Okay. Raise your hand if you have questions from the audience. All right. We have one right here. Thank you.
Hi, Alex Kako from Pivotal Communications. So when we're talking about the race for global supremacy, I'd like to get some of your reactions of how you feel about something like, say, the Verizon Technical Forum releasing specs. I know some of the panelists are on the technical forum, so maybe we could get the reactions from the companies that are on the forum directly, as well as some of the others. Do you see that as a good thing for competition and collaboration, or do we want more of those to come around, or will that lead? Just kind of get your reactions to that.
Start with Matt.
Sure. I'm on the forum, and in many ways we have to applaud Verizon for the initiative and to act as a catalyst. I mean, that's caused a lot of activity, and really been driving the progress of 5G. And us as vendors, we take notice of that and we respond to that. We do have to be mindful of creating fragments, and if we do, to get things fast to schedule, chart a path to come back to what we really ultimately all want to end up with is a design and a protocol and a specification that can support the largest global scale. So I think in this case, Verizon's actions have been very beneficial to the industry.
Yeah, we also applaud for that kind of initiative. As we mentioned earlier, the challenge is still timely to form the 3GPP, global accepted 5G standards, which will benefit the whole industry. I think the carrier like Verizon go ahead, take initiative, publish their views. I think it's going to positive force to push to that direction. And of course, in the early deployment, you still have two challenges I think you have to manage. from ZTE point of view. Why? You have to choose a partner so that you can deploy your 5G technology forward compatible to the future 5G global standard. So that's very important. And secondly, when you deploy that network, so you have to find specific devices for the consumers who can really use those kind of technology meaningful way before the standard is finalized. So I think those are the two challenges you have to manage well.
And I think we should also applaud Verizon. I mean, not to go into the detailed discussions we have, but in the course of those discussions, I think you guys would agree, we are constantly thinking about, hey, we want a global standard, we want scale, and there's a police officer in the room. It's called R&D scale, complexity, and cost that is forcing us to do that. So, and looking at mandatory, optional, and what Matt said earlier, which is because we do have to prove some of the physics, and we have to trial, and we have to get out there. So when we're doing something that's pre-standard or we're not sure yet, to make sure that we have the path to come back to it.
I think that's an excellent point, actually, because this early stage, especially in the millimeter wave, will require, of course, new technology. We already talked about that, but it's going to be a level of iteration in terms of how to actually deploy and get the best out of this. And I think that's why it's so good that US in general here has taken such a strong position when it comes to 5G and driving both the technology as well as deployment and the bigger ecosystem. So that's very good, very important.
So Chibi, how do you feel I don't think you're in the forum, right?
No.
So how do you feel about operator creating that type of forum? Is that okay?
We
Because it's
have
pushing things, or do you feel differently because, hey, well, wait a sec, I want to do something different too?
We are both excited and have concerns. We are excited because with the forum's lead, we may be able to facilitate the ecosystem of the 28 gigahertz so that the success of the ecosystem will help to build a more healthier high-band 5G network. And also, we are very interested in that this forum's work will be under 3GPP's activity so that it become still stay as a unified 5G standard in the world. That's very important. The concern we have is that, again, is the two things. One, whether this activity will be mainly focused for fixed, or it's actually for both fixed and mobile. As we know that for the fixed part, I think China Telecom, we are the largest fixed wireline network in the world, and we have very large fiber network. And we see, especially in a country like China, the dense population, the fiber is actually much cheaper, and the high band will only be complementary. However, the main money from high band is really from mobile. So we are concerned that we hope that this effort will actually move both from the fixed and also include the mobile so that we can make the unified 5G more healthier.
Any other questions from the audience? So just raise your hand.
There was one here earlier.
Right in the second row here.
Okay, this is Roger from US Cellular. The question is about, earlier you mentioned LTE laid a good foundation for 5G. Whoever got a firm LTE network today likely to be the winner tomorrow for 5G. What about new entrants for 5G? Is there, how to understand that if you think LTE is the condition for a future winner?
So what about new entrants for the 5G race? Everyone's focused, obviously, on the 3GPP standard, but.
Well, I think the way to look at that is not so much only, we talked a little bit about the footprint before, but I think this is a new technology, a family of technologies that can benefit from all the advancements that we've done on LTE, no doubt about that. But I think some of the deployments, they are perhaps not the classical deployments. So if we talk about things that we do in cities, in stadiums, maybe indoor in some cases, they may not have been addressed fully with the previous generation. So to me, it's perhaps a little bit too narrow to only look at the current structure of operators and how you serve customers best. So I think the tool, what 5G provides, is certainly going beyond that. And the engagements that we have with many industries, and I think Matt made this comment in his keynote this morning, is that there is a much stronger involvement from all the other industries that are now impacted by mobile, of course, but 5G in particular, because they see new opportunities to engage early on, putting their requirements up, being part of the development, and perhaps also early deployment. So there's also a lot of opportunity by broadening the scope of what 5G can do. Then there's no doubt, as we said before, that there is a lot of good reasons to link in terms of wide area coverage, what we have done and what we will be doing in the coming years on LTE and its evolution into the first 5G systems for very practical reasons.
Go with Matt, and then we'll go with Nisha.
I think there's going to be a lot of new entrants, and that's a sign of a healthy situation. First of all, there's going to be a lot of different services that can be offered that were not possible before. And especially when we start to support different types of spectrum regulatory paradigms, that'll make it easier for different types of service providers. And then there's so many more companies and partners involved in the definition. So all throughout the supply chain, I think there's going to be the possibility to find a way to contribute, because there's a lot of new technologies and new angles.
Yeah, so if you look into that evolution of from first generation now to 4G, and now we're talking about 5G. So all this technology evolution actually more focus on improve collaboration among human beings. So we have voice, with more data connection and all the things. Now we talk about Internet of Things. So we improve all the things there. But I think the 5G coming is really provided a real opportunity that we're going to also improve the cooperation among machines. So if you think about in the real time data exchange and cooperation among all the machines around us, so there is created complete new opportunity. So if you also looking back the first generation to fourth generation, we are all carrier-centric kind of thinking. So Roger, you're from US Cellular, you asked this question actually is from a carrier point of view. But I think 5G, if you see that one newcomer, player, they come in, they just deploy 5G network. That could possible because, they can choose a vertical or different industry. Like Mark Cooper mentioned many new things, he's not from this wireless industry. But think about the collaboration among all the machines, tens of billions of machines going to talk to each other. So the limit is your imagination.
Yeah. So that is going to be good concluding remarks for our 5G and our race to the supremacy. On behalf of 5G Americas and CTIA, I want to thank the audience, but also really want to thank all of our expert panelists with a round of applause. And we wish you a great rest of the CTIA show. Thank you very much.